welcome to Women Talk. I'm your host, Kimberly Ewing, and today we're actually going to be talking to a fine community member, Hollie Grimaldi Flores, and we're going to be talking about women in sort of a man's world of work and how that affects everyone in the community. Welcome, Hollie.
Well, thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
It's always fun to see you and being in our community in Nevada County. You know, like I've said before, we all have so many different roles and hats that we wear, but one thing that is the topic I think we can relate to, both of us, is sort of like a woman working in a man's world.
Yes, yeah, very much so. I spent 10 years working in radio, which you don't necessarily think of as a man's world, but the reality is it very much was men broadcasting for years and years and years with a woman on the side, you know, kind of like, I don't know, an accoutrement. And even in the industry itself, when I was on the air as a DJ, as an on-air personality, we were told not to play 2 female songs in a row. Like there was something.
You mean female artists?
Yes, yes. So you would play male, 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 female, male, male, female, but never 2 in a row. That somehow that wasn't palatable. So even in the beyond the workplace, in the world as a whole, that was the thought process that women kind of stayed back just a little bit.
And when was that, Hollie?
That was 2005 to 2015, so really not very long ago.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking maybe in the 80s, because to me, I'm like, what?
When I was just a child turning in the turntable.
2005?
Splicing tape.
That is not long ago.
No,
so
2015.
Wow.
Not so long ago. And then I left, of course, broadcasting and went into print media, where it is male, 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 male dominated. The Union newspaper has a total of 2 female publishers in its, I don't know what the history is because I can't do math that fast. That is a female trait I'll take.
but that's true. They have not had a female at the lead that often there.
Right, twice. And Julia Stidham was the last one, and she left after about a year in this latest environment, which is so difficult in print media, which is a whole nother topic.
Well, that's true. And it's like when you think about media too, Hollie, I mean, let's take a step back and find out a little bit more about you being in communications industry, which has been a man's world, as we know, for so long. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I went to school in New York for radio and television production.
In New York,
upstate.
Fabulous.
And then I moved to California in 1985, immediately lost track of my vision and started doing the kind of work that could get me the most money in the least amount of time, which at that time was accounting and bookkeeping. And
Numbers.
I followed that. Can't do quick math, but I can do it on a calculator. And I followed that path for decades.
Okay.
And I was in Nevada County. I moved here in California in 85, Nevada County in 95.
Okay.
And in 2004-ish, I met a woman who was teaching a class called The Artist's Way at Work, which was finding your creative self in your workplace. And I remembered I was going to be in broadcasting. So I went to the local radio station and applied for a job, and they gave me a shot, and the next thing I know, I was news reporting and then became a morning anchor and spent a good 10 years doing that.
That is fantastic.
It was really a fun time. It was a lot of work, but I said yes to everything. Just give me more, give me more, give me more. Because again, the staff was 90% male. The administrative staff was female. But of course, the on-air people, there was, always, I felt like a token female. Is that what we call them?
Yes, right. And like you said, it wasn't even that long ago that was happening. And I'm listening to your story, and I love that you had a sort of reawakening of your artistic side through The Artist's Way, which is a great book, by the way. It's one of those books that says, don't forget your artistic side, and then in business, too.
Right. So I think it's Julia Cameron is the author, but then she got a partner to talk about not just artists, but the creative in every person, and finding that, because I don't think of myself that way. But also, and this is a little bit of a different topic, but at the time, there were no females in leadership really in Nevada County. There weren't females on the Board of Supervisors. There were very few females in government. And now look at us. Our CEO, our controller, our Board of Supervisors is majority female. So women are making their way into the traditional male roles, and I think it's just time.
Well, and let's talk about that. We were kind of talking about it off the air. It's like, it's nobody's fault, but it's like we've been brought up in this patriarchal system. And so it's just time to share the stage, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yes, I believe that women as partners in marriage have always been giving that feedback long before they had a voice, if they were in good, healthy relationships. So it was just as we have been allowed to develop, of course, our natural abilities have come through. We are multitaskers.
They say that we can't really multitask, but that we shift. We can switch back and forth really seamlessly, I think, as women.
Yes.
My husband tells me, he's like, there is really no such thing as multitasking because your brain only can shift one at a time. And actually, that's true. But we can shift pretty seamlessly, and we have, I mean, women are fast thinkers. That's what I've noticed too, is that whether we've articulated or reflected or thought about it, we just have some answers right away that can help aid the situation, whatever it is. And that's such a gift. I don't know why we were put to the side for so long. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well,
was there just privilege, or was there just fear, or what was the thing? Why were we just the token side?
Well, my answer would be power and control.
Okay. Those two ugly words.
I did take a women's study class here at Sierra College in the early 2000s, and one of the interesting takeaways from it was how often women in times of peace, right, were put into a place of being cared for, and the wealthy learned to be dainty and learned to knit and needlepoint and that sort of thing. But as soon as men needed to go off and maybe to make new lands and go hunt or whatever, it was women who were left behind to keep the household going, to do the farming, to do the laundry, to figure out the water, to raise the children. And then, so we were running the household, right? And then the men would come back and say, no, we don't need you anymore. Put your gloves on and go sit in the wagon. And so through history, that's what we were given. We were given power when needed. World War II. We need the women into the factories, right?
Right. My grandma actually was making bullets in World War II.
Yeah. And then men came home and no, you go back and sit back here and be nice and take care of the house. So we have had that tug of back and forth, and we have shown capability as women throughout history.
Right.
But we're often have it taken away from us. And now we're just coming into our time of equality.
Well, and I would love to be able to say that the community and the people are ready for just being able to be head to head, let us have equal exposure, let us have equal opportunity, let us have equal access, and yet it's still a struggle. Like we were talking about this, last show was about women's pay versus man's pay, and it's still a struggle. It's just a weird, when is this ever going to just be hey, we're equal people, let us both be at the helm here?
And I would say this, interestingly enough, the United States lags behind other countries. We think of ourselves as the leaders of the world, but we really are lagging behind in some places.
Isn't that interesting?
Like wage. Yes.
Yes.
What is that about?
I don't know, and I'm pretty sure that these might be unintentional consequences because people are still just not paying attention to it. But that's why we have to keep talking, and that's why we have the Women Talk Show, and that's why we are just stepping up and speaking out, and it's totally our right. Don't you think, Hollie?
The Equal Rights Amendment being ratified in our country, still waiting. That's a what I would say a gross error.
Yeah, it's just an interesting time. And did you say you had a personal experience or a story that you wanted to talk to that highlighted this whole a woman working in a man's world?
Thank you, because I'm so easily distracted. So I help organize conferences, and my job is to pull together proposals for the program. So when you go to a conference and you go to your workshops, I'm the person that kind of helped pull those together. So I was working with a committee, and the president of this organization happens to be a female and submitted a proposal. And the committee who was making the selection are male, and they were talking about what track. Is it innovation? Is it education? Is it, there's 10 or 12 other things, online learning, AI, that sort of thing. And the men said, why don't we put you in DEI?
Okay, and for the audience,
which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, right?
Right.
Because it was submitted by a woman. And the woman was, I'm trying to think of the word, offended, it doesn't even say it, but so offended. When I thought, well, the reality is it is a minority. Women in leadership, we are still in a minority overall. Maybe not in this county, but overall, if you look at the numbers. And I just found it really interesting because she's like, don't put me in a minority position. And here she is, the president of the organization that's being represented. So we have a ways to go.
Yeah, and that is interesting. And she wasn't a woman of color or of...
She is,
okay.
But the topic was not.
Aha.
And that is the point.
That was the thing that upset her, or, you know...
Right, that she thought was unfair. It wasn't who was presenting, it was the topic on which you were presenting. So if it was a blind enrollment and they didn't know who it was, it probably would have gone into an innovation track. But because they knew who put the proposal in, they went to a DEI track. And I think that just speaks to maybe the prejudice around the male-female dynamic that continues.
Yeah, interesting.
Even at that level. I mean, technically, she's their boss.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. And so it continues. And did that resolve at all, or did she get a different platform, or is it still kind of in an issue?
She will be in a different track. She will not be. But again, then I think about the fact that women are a minority, and maybe we do belong in the DEI segments, right? If it was a woman's topic. So there's some debate there, and I think that women might be offended by that, but the reality is we are not on an equal plane. We are still in a minority. We still are working our way up, improving ourselves over and over and over.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about that too, because with women, and then you add in, your sexual orientation or possibly your ethnicity, we're both pretty Caucasian, and as women, we still are fighting the fight. But can you imagine the magnitude of that if you have another segment of minority?
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but it is still really interesting why and how. How do you think Nevada County has changed? Because, I mean, we have a diverse population up here, and that's great, and that's what makes it interesting up here. But also, how do you think that changed in the trajectory of good old boys, right? And then changing into equal or even having more women at leadership roles?
Well, I would argue diversity, first of all. There's not a ton.
We don't have a lot of cultural diversity up here.
We certainly have a very strong LGBTQ plus community, which is helpful. But that's what I was saying in the changes even since 2005 is that our county CEO now is female. For a bit, the top 3 county positions were female. And our sheriff is female, and our board of supervisors majority is female. And also, I don't know if it's coincidence or not, also Democratic. So for the first time, I think in the history of Nevada County, there's a Democratic majority running the board of supervisors. And the fact that they're female, I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but that's a lot of change. That's a lot of change. And I see, if you go into nonprofits, almost all of the CEOs are female.
Absolutely.
But if you go in the for-profit businesses and the tech businesses, you just don't see very many women running those. So what's that about?
Well, that is an interesting observation. I didn't put those two together, but as we all know, Nevada County is just chock full of nonprofit organizations, and every ED I know is female. Actually.
There you go.
But that's true, and then maybe not for the for-profit. Interesting.
Yes, think about some of the bigger companies. Just coming to mind, like Hills Flat or Byers or AJA or any of the big video companies. I don't believe there's women in the high leadership positions, and maybe they should be. Hanson Brothers used to have Sue Peterson. I think she retired, and not to say that's an inherited position, but it was a family business.
Sure.
So why aren't we getting those jobs? Are we not interested in those jobs? I
don't
say
know.
The dean of the college here at Sierra College is female, so there is that.
That's true.
That's education.
We know her well, yeah. And education, education's always predominantly been historically female. And what I love about that is that's changing, and that's really good, I think, for kids to see, father figures or uncle figures or just male figures being in roles of nurturing and education and learning. But, when I think about it too, Hollie, it's like, how is this, if we look at Nevada County, since we're here, we have these females. How do you think that how has it changed in the sense that now we have some female leadership in our county? I mean, honestly, I think things are a little bit more settled, maybe I would say. Or how do you think that as female roles have gone and leadership, how has things changed or improved? Or, what do you think?
Well, I don't really know how to answer that without giving that some thought, because the ship is steady, right? We're not financially in trouble. We aren't seeing a lot of lawsuits, or were we before? That's not really fair to say that was a problem before. Sure. But what I do see is some stability, and that more women are stepping up. And when you were talking about education, it made me think about how unfair it has been to men. Also, the other side, which we don't really talk about very much, is them not being allowed to have those opportunities to stay at home when they wanted to, or to be teachers, or those fields that have been traditionally female have been frowned upon. And so maybe it's just that we're getting past gender and that we can just go for the most qualified person. And won't that be nice?
Ding, ding, ding. That is so true. And I mean, on that note, this is at the point of where we're kind of at the end of our segment, but I feel like this is a work in progress, and we're, as humans, we're works in progress as it is. But I do love the opportunity that everybody can be considered.
Yes. No matter
everybody,
what.
No matter what. And especially, I love the idea that it's not a male or female, it's just a human opportunity.
Or as someone I know would say, or for those who refuse to pick a side.
Or right? For those that refuse to pick a side.
There you go.
I'm just human. I am just me. I am this person. So that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
And why not? If you're the most qualified and you can pull yourself forward and represent and be the best for the position, then it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
That's
where we need to be. We just saw a play about that, where the woman pretended to be a man to get her work approved, and it was approved until they realized that it was her.
Right.
And then they fought back at it. And I know that happens in real life situations where you have to go in blind. Women authors used to use pen names, right?
Oh yeah,
so
J.K. Rowling.
Hello.
All of these people that had to fake their way through it or deceive a little just to get an opportunity, which, is not their fault. They just wanted to be seen and heard. Right. And so that shouldn't be anymore. Right? So that's what we're talking about, Hollie.
We're past that. It's almost 2025.
What? So anyway, thank you, Hollie, for coming and just chatting about this.
Great conversation.
Always fun. Well, this is Women Talk. I'm your host, Kimberly Ewing, and we will see you for next month's topic. See you later.